Guyana will become the next Dubai, and we, the citizens of Guyana, are super excited to benefit from our homeland the same way the citizens of Dubai benefit from theirs.
This is what life is like for citizens from the Emirate of
Guyana will become the next Dubai.
With wonderful people all over this country. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana.
As we come to your Monday night program from New York, Guyana, Canada, and of course around the world. We want to thank our host, Nohar Singh, for making this platform available, and of course to Ryan, our technical specialist tonight. We want to welcome you, and tonight we will speak on politics, the economy, land use, and the impact of inflation. To your viewers out there, we want to thank you again for joining us. As you know, today in the United States, it's a national holiday. We celebrate Labor Day. It's the unofficial last day of summer, but we know summer ends at the next new moon, and then fall begins. Also in Guyana, today is the first day of school, so we want to wish all our students all the best. We are appealing to drivers. We have seen the government and the local organization have been painting a lot of crossing for children. We ask drivers to please stop your vehicle when you see someone want to cross the road. That's the honorable thing to do. That's the right thing to do. I've seen today a guy took out a video. They were driving on the Berbice Road, and he wanted to turn right, and no car would stop for him just to turn right. And that's the problem we have in Guyana. So I'm appealing to our drivers, please respect the road. It's for all of us to use. And if you can't wait a minute for someone to turn, then something is wrong with us. But again, please protect our children and ensure that we don't have any accident with our children. Tonight we have two outstanding sons of Guyana, both from the quarantine Berbice area. As I said, the wise men come from the east. So we are so honored to have both of these gentlemen tonight. They're no stranger. Joe Passad is the consulting engineer and planner, director, program, project manager, contract administrator, budgeting, training advisor to the government of Canada and formerly to Guyana. He's also a secret level 2 Canadian government planning for development of nations and the First Nation Amerindian. He has done tremendous work in Trinidad and Tobago, as we know, in the oil and gas sector, and he has tremendous knowledge in that area. And of course, another Barbician, Dr. Amaya. Gentlemen, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Passad, you want us to tell us something, make a statement before we start. Go right ahead.
We are talking about planning, inflation, the economy, etc. In planning, knowing that we have oil, some money will come. And those of you who recall that I have written 2 papers, one on 17 reasons why this contract of the oil is null and void, because it's not made in good faith and it should be renegotiated. That's my job to write technical contracts. And the other one I wrote, that was in April 29, 2019. And the other one in planning, impact of the fleeting trickle oil boom in February 2020. And remember I said fleeting trickle oil boom. That's encompasses planning on the whole. Government needs, when you plan for everything. You know you will have some oil money, and oil company normally give you enough to create a little boom to fool the people that, hey, we got our money. Good. But whatever, at the end of it, when the oil is finished, the country is finished. Like Trinidad. and crime take over, capital flight take over. Now planning and land use planning. Before we go there, government has to assess that, look, we have all these things happening. We're going to have some oil money. We're going to have people coming in to work from all over the Caribbean and anywhere else, because Guyana has oil boom, like what happened in Trinidad. That's how many Guyanese migrated there. And you got to prepare housing, roads, bridges, you got to plan. And in the process of planning, you got to look at what is critical, what is desirable, and what is necessary in those three categories. And you must address and schedule in the critical ones first, so that you're able to meet certain needs of the government. And then land use planning is very important, which we're going to talk subsequently. And the same thing we have to do for operation and maintenance of what is existing right now. How do we plan? How do we involve the 4 M's if we don't have the human resources? Man, money, machine, and material. We're going to create inflation if we overheated budget. And I have written to the government, the last year budget and this budget do not have an overheated budget, or else you wouldn't have the resources, skilled, unskilled, and professional resources to execute these things. Hence, you're going to run into inflation, accident, you're going to kill people, take the roads, the fatality, etc. So we're going to go to land use planning and furthermore just now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prasad. I've got my co-host, Dr. Rose. Dr. Rose, welcome, and you have a statement as well.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, good morning, good night, or good day, everyone. Wherever you are, I'm Dr. Asquith Rose, and I'm the co-moderator of Globespan Television here in New York. Tonight, I want to express the view that has become deep-rooted in our society. Like all of you, I'm a Guyanese. And Guyana belongs to all of us. And all of us, young, old, straight, gay, lesbian, Black, Indian, Amerindian, should be allowed to express our views and our thoughts freely, for or against, without any repercussions. We are not servants to anyone, but we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. We are a democracy in which no one is perfect or above or beyond criticism or the law. Lest we forget, they have criticized Jesus Christ and have nailed him to the cross. So we, the lesser mortals, should not allow anyone to have a stronghold on our views, so as that we are afraid to speak the truth. To not speak the truth will not set us free. The time has come for us to respect one another and to have compassion towards each other. Now, I'm going to say briefly, I've written a book on Obama. And in that book, I've criticized Obama on a number of different issues. I've interviewed himself, his wife, his 2 children, his cabinet secretaries, his teachers, professors, everybody from his infancy. I sent him a copy of the book. He read it, and his words were well written. Despite the criticism, he congratulated me on being objective, honest, and that is the way it should be. But in our present-day culture in Guyana, our egos are bigger than the country. That is, if one is being objectively criticized, there will be repercussions or retribution, especially if those that have power to do so. In Germany, when Hitler took power in 1933, he outlawed the opposition and used propaganda to suppress ideas and to promote his beliefs. Nazis' beliefs. People could not say or write anything they wanted. He used propaganda to disguise his political aims and deceived the Germans and the international public. Folks, if you see wrong, you should be free to expose and correct it. But those who see wrong and do not correct it are to be blamed themselves. And those who see wrong and if try to correct it, and some believe that they're speaking out against a certain organization, a certain institution, then they themselves are wrong and they themselves are seeing wrong and will not want to correct it because they are in denial. We must not be in denial because of power, money, or any lofty position. Doing so is an injustice to ourselves and the country. Because to be in denial is not only to stifle your conscience, but you are destroying your will to be free and independent. And after the money and the position is gone, you'll be haunted because you yourself knew you saw wrong and did not say anything. You upheld wrong and did do nothing to correct it because you were more interested in maternal things or practical stuff. We must all remember that life is precious and we have all rented a space on this earth. Until the words ashes to ashes and dust to dust are recited. But we do not know the hour when that time will come. That is why, as God's living creatures, we must love, not hate, respect, not disrespect, speak the truth, not lies, forgive, and not to be vindictive against. For Guyana belongs to all of us, and we must all share in its prosperity, regardless of race, color, party, affiliation, or what have you. At Globespan Television, we strive for objectivity. We are fair and balanced. We do not criticize for the sake of criticism. Yet some still have the mindset and the audacity to tell us that we are critical of certain institutions and certain organizations in the country. We believe that no one knew it all in Guyana or outside of Guyana and should be criticized because we are not perfect. This country cannot move forward with that type of mentality, where it is wrong and should not be tolerated. This is a major failure in our society, and I know that President Ali is trying to do his best to bridge the racial gap and divide the country with his One Guyana initiative. But there are undercurrents in society that are attempting to destroy what he's trying to promote. Those who underestimate the will of the people will get a major surprise someday soon. And let me say this again finally. We at Globespan are fair and balanced, neutral and independent. We do not take or advocate on anyone's behalf. Everyone in Guyana and beyond is free to be our guest at any time. The government, the opposition, trade unions, private sector, public sector, the Bar Association, sports personalities, religious leaders, everyone in Guyana are free to be our guest at any one time, either to debunk what someone said about them or to advocate on their behalf. Noor Singh, who is the CEO of Globespan Television, is a very humble man. He is fair, honest, and respectful, but he is being wrongly criticized because he wants a balanced network. And some see that as a threat to their survival. But let me say this, Globespan will be here and will continue to be here long after many of us are gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Dr. Amaya, I also want to give you the opportunity to give any opening statement you have.
Good night again, Charles and Dr. Rose, and to my friend Joe, and to be here once again. But before I get into any program, I want to congratulate all those students with the CXC exam and this great success this country received in the last sitting, especially that son of the family in charity with 27 subjects. I believe it was 22 grade 1s and 5 grade 2s. So we are excelling in so many different ways. But as Dr. Rose pointed out, when we do constructive criticism, we should not condemn for that. Constructive criticism enhances a society to build upon our mistakes. Unless people can criticize us, and true leadership, unless the truth comes out from them, they are not a leader. And this is basically what Dr. Rose was saying, that we should learn to accept. And that is how we can able to coordinate our thoughts, our society together, and we can make progress. But if everything has to be one way in life, it is not going to be a life that we want. Without oppositions, without ups and downs, life is not sweet. This is what we have to, this is what this program is doing, is to promote cohesiveness, advice to whichever is government or private sector, to make them understand that we have a panel. And Dr. Rose is making efforts also to bring people on this panel. And it is good that when we have our ministers to come and say what their programs are, what they are doing, how the country will benefit from what they are doing, is very essential. But when they exclude themselves from coming to the light of Globespan, which is going right through the world, then there is something to be hidden. I don't think so. And our ministers are trying. And one of the ministers I will talk about later on is Mr. Ashley Singh. For the first time when I listened to him 2 weeks ago, he created something in me that is impeccable. That is how ministers supposed to deliver themselves and to carry out the programs of a government. And he did that emphatically well. And I want to congratulate him when I listened to him on that Sunday, what he delivered to the people there. That is how our minister should behave. That is how our minister should promote a government. And that how you sensitize the people that what we expect to do and how we're going to go forward of doing it. So in all on what I'm doing here, I don't know for some reason or reasons that I am very objective, but there's one thing in my life that I have never done is to compromise my principle for anybody. And I don't believe in maybe the few years that remaining that I want to compromise my principle for anybody.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Amaya. I know we spent quite a bit of time on statements. I know Mr. Joe Prasad did not get as much time. But I want to start with you, Dr. Amaya, if you don't mind. You're there right now. School opens today. And I've seen on social media some school children who are selling broom and cake and so on to assist their parents to buy uniform for them. We know that the government gave that uniform allowance that they restarted with this government going in place, but they gave it early this year because of, I guess, because of the election. Do you think that was a good move? Did the students who start out school today, did they have their new uniform? What have you seen there in Berbice?
Well, it is true that that photograph was sent to me, and it was very sad that the money that was given to the families, the families that I met, because I am on the ground all the time, they utilize that money for buy food, and some probably they use in a rum shop. But the question here, at the time when the money was given out, it was too far from the reopening of school. So the families, they did not see the necessity of buying the uniform at a set time. But because of the cost of living and food is necessary on the table, the money was being turned to utilize it for buying food. Now, one of the questions here, now we're having a dry spell and the cost of living went up. So again, generally, we're going to find a lot of people come to my home with the children and ask for help. Even for funeral expenses, some people cannot afford it. So it's not only the money that was given out for buy clothes, but I was expecting that will happen because the people are actually, the money is not there for the cost of living. If you have a job and you cannot pay your rent, your bills, and buy food, and you have a little savings, then actually we are living on the poverty line. And this is what exactly is happening. So the government, although they're trying, but we are not reaching out to the cost of living. And that is one of the reasons you find all type of devious act is going on too. People are stealing a lot now. They go to the market and just pull out your chain and then just disappear with a bicycle. So things like this will happen in a rough time, like what we are going through right now. 3 little balanji is $500–600. So people cannot afford because the weather is hard and is expected any part of the world. That is expected. We don't have an equilibrium, a balance all the time. So whether the weather is bad, you're gonna have a different effect in our society. So begging is become a thing of the day right now. All over in the markets, you go to the markets, you find people begging. And some people make it a way of surviving. It becomes habitual for them, it's easier to ascertain money. So again, it's not because of economic crisis alone, but they choose to do that for a living. Beg.
Okay. All right. Mr. Prasad, I want to bring in here now quickly before Dr. Rose come on. We know in the last 7 weeks, there were 6 protests by the sugar workers in Berbice. What is going on there in Berbice?
People are need-driven. People are suffering, like Dr. Rose say. So they are resenting it. Look at 20 persons. They strike, what, 6 times? And they are arrested when government should have got maybe the CEO or somebody to go and talk to them and see their problems. And in Trinidad, if people are suffering, right, because of inflation, which we cannot deny, you can give them something called COLA, cost of living allowance. All the government service people, all the police service, etc., the government should have given them 20% cost of, you don't increase the salary, you give them a cost of living allowance, because if the time change, you would not able to reduce the salary. So now they should do that across the board. Instead of giving people saying you're giving them $250,000 and you give them $50, you know, and do it properly. And that's what is happening. People going to come out and protest. And Region 6 is this government stronghold, you know, and they're still looking at all this confusion. You see some comments in these groupings, and you will be shocked to know that this government need to attend to that. So people are need-driven. People need money. You take the Gaisuku and the sugar workers. I am the man who did the first paper that the commission in the last government looked and reviewed, from analyzing Gaisuku before you close the sugar estate. It's titled Gaisuku Options. And I showed them how they should go and analyze it in a 3-page, from short-term solutions to mid-term. And if not, if you're going to close some, what do you do with the people? Like what Trinidad did. They give them certain 10, 15 days work, you know? But then what happened with Gaisuku again? Right now, Andy Rice because the government has an overheated budget. They attract the people into construction. Hence the rice farmers, the sugar is suffering. You don't have the people to do the work. Nobody wants mud and ashes. Trinidad had to stop sugar and rice because everybody wants to do construction, etc. So when you see people protesting there are several reasons why they are doing it. Because you don't have the resources. You can't put an overheated budget and you don't have the 4 M's, man, machine, material as well. So it's a combination of things that cause those problems.
It all has to do with planning, as you said. Dr. Rose, over to you.
Charles, can I add something to what Joe has said?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the problems, my understanding, that when the estates were closed, the severance pay that was given to Skellen and Kanji, the government, when they came into power in 2020, in August, they felt that the Skellen estate, the workers were not giving enough severance pay. And by now that the Kanji estate is reopening, I think that is one of their concerns, that they should be given a severance pay as well, apart from the other conditions that are meted out to them. So the severance pay is a key factor here for the strike. That although they're re-employed, they want the severance pay, like what happened in Skellen. So I don't know if it is a justifiable a reason to strike, but the government has to work on something that if they're re-employed, if they should be given a second severance pay, like what was done at Skellen. That is my understanding of the strike, most of the people who are striking.
Yeah, I think that really rounded off nicely. Exactly, that's what I heard too. That the Skellen people were given severance twice, so why can't the people from Kanji get the same thing? Dr. Rose, over to you.
Yes, Mr. Joe Prasad, my good friend, you have used the term overheated budget every time we talk, and tonight about 4 times. And you have said the 4 M's. Can you explain to our audience what is meant by an overheated budget and what are the 4 M's?
Sure. If you put too much money to do things in a country, you're getting money, you're borrowing money in a country, you are the government, and you put out more money to do more activities, more contracts, right? Probably the government think that coming election, we're going to do so much, so many things. And what has happened when you put out all that money and so many programs and projects, you don't have the 4 M's. In other words, 1 M is manpower, man. You need skilled, unskilled, and professional men to carry on these projects. You don't have them in Guyana. You need machines, enough machines. You need, that's 1 M, that's 2 M now. Enough material, right? If you don't have the material, the cost of the material also go up, and you wouldn't be able to complete your programs. And then, that's the 4 M's there, and money. They don't have the money either, you're borrowing. So that's the 4 M's. If you don't have that, you cannot do nothing physically and build them without those things. And hence, what happens? They overheated. When you put too much money and too much program out, you don't have the 4 M's. Inflation. Inflation. That's the root of inflation. Scarcity, supply and demand. That's what it is.
Dr. Amaya, I have a question for you. And like you, I've spent a lot of time at Berbice. But Region 6 of all the regions, I think is the most governed region. It has about 110,000 people. It has 3 mayors, New Amsterdam, Rose-Alton, and Curriverton. It has an NDC, and it has RDC rather. It has 19 NDCs, more than the 17 in Georgetown. is this region, it seems to me and to many people that the region is overgoverned. Yet there are many problems. Why?
Well, I don't think it's the distribution of the wealth, the way it trickled down to the region, and this is one of my concern, that it's not that we have too many NDCs or too many mayorship in Berbice, but the function of these NDCs and the amount of money that is allocated, that the programs that the government has in place is not carried out. And Joe strikes something there about construction. Let me get a little bit involved in that. The infrastructure development, I have never seen under any president since I came back and before, that under President Ali, that is the most infrastructure development we ever had in this country during his presidency. And that is a compliment for him. However, the same money that was placed, and that is why my honesty, I've been condemned for that, to talk about what is happening. And Joe, as an engineer, will know that every step of construction has to be inspected by an engineer before you go to the second step. I did work in my own place when I was living overseas. Every step, if you want to build something, it has to be signed off before you go to the second level. It is not done. Up to Friday night, I went to number 1, where the road was so high, if you only tilt the car for one edge, the car will topple. They did not dig the street. It's not the government on top, but the people on the bottom, Dr. Rose, that the engineers from the region, and yet for all, we have not getting the work done, although the contractors are getting their money for what they bid. Now the bill of quantity is not being shown to these people what they have to do, and how the people are supposed to be involved. And if the people are not involved in their communities, a sloppy work will be done. But the question here, I can tell you, the money is, the bidding was there, but the work was not done effectively and professionally in many cases. And I don't know in a couple of years if we have to go and rehabilitate some of the streets and some of these roads. But I would like to see, as Joe said, the expenditure is a lot of money spent. But again, people need this kind of improvement, and it creates jobs. It creates jobs. And a new initiative that is taken here, I only hope that the economy is supposed to boost up, to pick up very quickly. But I didn't see it that way. I didn't see that the economy is picking up. And Joe mentioned supply and demand, and that is one of the problems that we have also in Berbice area. At one time, then I had sand, then I had red sand, then I had stones. But gradually, we have the weather and things are going good. But the question, Dr. Rose, is not what trickled down from the top. It's what is coming from the regional level that is causing a lot of problems. And yes, Region 6 is in a deplorable state in many, many cases, that the work that's supposed to be done is not done effectively.
Can I speak?
Okay, go ahead, Joe. Be short.
You see, the bill of quantities, as a contract manager, to show the people the bill of quantities, and the people are not supposed to assess quality. When they observe it, they can write and send it to their government, but they cannot interfere with a contract and a contractor and the people who manage it. That's illegal. The contractor can sue them for interfering with the progress of their work. They have nothing to do with the bill of quantities, but what they can see, poor workmanship. And that's one thing. The other thing is talking about create jobs. They create, that's what I was saying. They create too many jobs that they take the workers from the rice and the sugar into construction. Nobody wants mud and ashes. So those industries are suffering. And the rice price is still at $61,000 paddy price per ton. So there's a big issue there with such major industries. In addition to that, I don't know what the RPA and all these agencies, the GRDB, water user, and the NDIA doing. They should be helping to get things done, but there is another problem. When we went to Trinidad, you know, when I graduated, I thought I'm the engineer putting on my jacket and tie, going into the office, right? Now, when I go there, Mr. Yuri Arinu make me a draftsman. I said, what the hell is this? But I couldn't even interpret the drawings properly. You had to learn. Then when you design, another engineer check your work. But most of the engineers those days, when they graduated and went to Guyana, they gone wearing this khaki shirt and pants. I am the engineer, but have just know some arithmetic from university. And government depend on their advice, and they cannot put right advices to them. And that's what I see. Two engineers came from Guyana. One was the head of transportation with a private engineering company. After 6 or 8 months, they had to fire him. He didn't know engineering. Another one came when I leave. I was doing a work in Signal Hill, Tobago, on housing and the Chagaramas Beach, etc. So I hand him over my project. 6 months after, and they're senior engineers in Guyana, he was fired. He was planting rice in Trinidad. They were trying to resurrect the rice industry. That's in the 80s. So, because the knowledge, even the engineers there, do not have that level of knowledge to inspect. They look at a bill of, this is the work, even the bill of quantities are not appropriately and professionally done. Now, I tell you a little lesson. I was in Guyana some time ago, and they were doing a street with concrete. The street is narrow. Two guys, if you're coming from this way and this way, won't have to back up. And they're going to end up in fight. But they were constructing part of the street still. But you see, if you're casting concrete, we call it slab and grade, under your house or on the street, you got to put reinforcement 2 to 3 inches below the top of the surface of the concrete, because the concrete will buckle like this. And that mesh that they put would prevent it from buckling. It would take the tension, because the bottom of the slab would be in compression, because the earth lateral shear at the sides. So that was not done. I just see the mesh lying flat on the ground, serving no process whatsoever. And pouring of concrete is going on. I feel so sad about it. So what is happening? Well, government is trying to do things for the next election to give concrete here, build this. You got to get some quality, and you got to train people and everything. And we are failing. It's either for election, and when to hell with it, we did so much. So we have problems. So not how much we do, Dr. Ramaya. It is how much what we do, we spend the people money properly. The life. You take the 58 road. That's the road, that thing they built in the back dam there. You know what they're doing now? When the trucks overload their paddy, good? Now they're digging the sides. They're digging the side, the sand, the people are selling the sand. And while digging that, loading a load of sand is destroying that road. And it's going to create lateral shed, and it's going to break. It's going to, one of these road life, the main road, that's a 25 years life. But because our reef sand have so much binding qualities, our road lasts over 50 years. despite we have these heavy loads coming in from the rice field on these trucks. But that was different compared to the backdam road that you built there going in 58th Village. And they didn't do a feasibility studies to know what if it's a 95% Proctor modified density compaction or what. So there are lots of issues happening. The government is trying, right? But you got to do quality stuff. So if you got overheated budget, want to do so much, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the material, etc. What you're doing, you're causing inflation on the other hand. It got to be well planned. And that is what, like, can I talk a little more on planning?
Oh, just now. We're going to get it just now. One last question before my colleague Charles comes on. The founder of the PEP, one of the founders, Dr. Chagan, said in his book, Freedom, that we must strive to create a just society. And Walter Rodney, I think it was in 1978, said that we need equilibrium in Guyana. Explain what they were actually saying then. And do you think we'll ever achieve either of those two goals, given our huge resources and our small population? Dr. Amaya.
Well, Dr. Rose, one of the things that we have to do as a society, as a country, in all fairness, we have to treat everyone with respect and dignity. And if that is not done, whether which ethnic group, which political group you belong to, we will not reach to that stage that where we can have a society that will see a government that is working for the people. And this is a pivotal aspect of life anywhere in the world. Criticism is going to be there. There is no question about that. And no government will be able to satisfy every individual. So leaders at different stages, Dr. Jagan during his time, he see people, look, the Afro-Guyanese during Dr. Jagan time, he was well favored around the black majority in this country. But as time goes on, we revolutionize the politics also, and society has changed because of technology. So we will not see eye to eye anymore. But still, a government is for the people. The people is the government, the people who put them there to represent them. And that is what we have to do. Transparency must always be there. That we must see that other people are receiving the same benefit. I will tell you something. Recently, we had a double murder at Rosal. And I was there from day one with the family. And you know, Dr. Rose, I discussed this with you, and I said, on behalf of the government and myself, we extend our condolences and sympathy to the family. And some people did not like that. But by all fair means, I am working for the government. And it's not that because they were not there, and it will not probably go well with this panel. However, the people see that the place was bushy, and I had to explain to them that private land, government cannot go and clean the bushes. But the streets, on which I did a very, very effective program, and the mayor started to do, did some work before the funeral. Now, these are the things that people see one-sided. And I don't know how we're going to be able to resolve our differences, I will say human differences. And if we see things in one way, we will not see Guyana going forward. But again, we have to make that projection that we are not for one race, we are for all the people of Guyana. And this is where different era, different time, different things will happen. And as Joe said, the roads were not built for double axle truck. So once you not have the strength of the road, it will damage. And this is what we have to make a projection that certain vehicle cannot travel on the road and certain vehicle can travel. But we don't do that. We try to accommodate people, and out of that accommodation, what happened? we also bring destruction.
Can I say something to that, Dr. Rose?
Yes, Joe, but be short before Charles comes on. Go ahead.
Okay. When we talk about equilibrium and getting people, we are two major races, and the way we vote, blacks vote for PNC, Indians vote PPP, largely. And no government from 1966 to the present time has made any genuine effort, practical thing, to merge this race together. It's all addressing to the suck-ups and opportunists first, right? And that create dislike among the other people. At one time, I proposed to Dr. Jagan to put Dr. Lunchan as the presidential candidate for PPP, and I told Comrade Hyde to put Winston Murray as the president for the PNC. Let's see how the people work. I even advised President Bar Jagdeo that give some ministries to the PNC and work together. These are efforts to bring people together. The other thing is, I don't understand, I don't think Vice President Jagdeo is a racist somehow. Maybe I'm wrong now. But when I was there in Guyana as the director of primary education improvement program, we had to assess the schools before we repair the worst, right? Those that have more critical needs. And we are doing that, and some Indian people were calling me and cursed me on the phone that you and Dr. Jagan and all of you doing more things for the black people, but that was not the idea. I was doing what is professional. And I told Mr. Vice President Jagdeo this. He said, Joe, you're doing the right thing. We must not see race in this country. We must do where we have the needs, you know? So now, why they are not merging these things? They may think they're losing their power. And they cannot manipulate things unless they are very corrupt, you know? And they don't want too many eyes inside. You don't know. And this is the guesswork, and this is what would widen the race more. Thank you.
Charles?
Gentlemen, we spoke a lot of Berbice, and we talk about, Joe spoke of the heated budget and the equilibrium that need to be in place for a country to really move effectively forward without overheating the economy, as you put it. With the shortage of workers in Berbice because of this massive construction Dr. Amaya talked about, this 4,000, 40,000 10-day workers that they have is 4,000, I think it's 5,000 now. The government is paying almost $200 million every month to these workers who work 10 days and they just get 40,000. Many of those, we don't know if it's true. Dr. Amaya is in Berbice there now. Are they fraudulent transaction? Are they people who sign and do not work? Those things are possibility because we don't know. Do you think this 40,000, how effective is that in the Berbice operation? In the total mix?
What the new initiative, what the president came down with there, is to create employments. We have a lot of single parents. We have a lot of people unemployed because they don't have a secondary education. It meant well for those people, the $40,000 meant well to bring bread and food on the table. However, you are correct. And that was one of my great concern, that I have seen that many of the workers are not working. But if you should ask me that if 5,000 people are there working, I will not able to tell you. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Ashney Singh was at WIM, and he elaborated, and now that you give me the opportunity, let me tell you what happened here. He said to the foreman that those people are working, and if they cannot perform the work, they should get fired. But within that realm of who is in charge, that is where the corruption is. That is where the corruption is. And I will tell you why I'm saying that. I have a group of people. I asked the vice chairman for a group of people to show them how the work's supposed to be done. One was published on the news a couple of days right by the Roman Catholic Church's Rosal. But the minister mentioned so clear, and he said that if people are not working for their money, they should be sent home. But to travel from Crabwood Creek to East Bank, I will not able to tell you how many of those persons are working and how many are not working. Unless they look into it and get a feasibility study done and accountability with the supervision of these people. Because I said to myself, and I will say it here, if I have 500 people, I actually in 6 months, I clean out the whole of our bees. The way I set myself and I'm doing the work, it must done properly. And that will be very effective for those people who are collecting the money. And the incentive, Charles, is a very good, a good program. I see it as a good program. And some of the people working in the clinics, it's like a new experience for them. They go there and they learn something. And maybe in times to come, we will have vocational schools, and it's very people can develop some first aid job, first aid training, and they can do like home care and whatever. So the program is not only directed to clean trenches, it's to work in the health center, in the local authority and so forth. So it's a diverse program, but again, how it is being implemented and how constructively they are being supervised to carry out the work.
So if you were in Barbados and you were given that task, what would have been what would you have done?
I would have first, if I got a task to build some road, I'd have identified the labor, the cost, the contract, what are the costs. Then I got the implementation, ensure I got enough material and manpower, etc. And then you implement it and have inspection. As you progress, there's a little form, we got inspection release. When I inspect what you do, then we do that. So you got to implement programs as it should be for quality.
As Dr. Amaya rightly said, some people did need a help. I mean, across Guyana, I think the government is doing that in many communities. But is that taking away the incentive to go and actually look for a real job where you earn a good living for your family? Is this preventing them from doing that?
Well, basically, these are unskilled people that actually go for the job and people who are helpless. I saw many of them at the region and asked me, but they have a system to employ you with even the $40,000, it is meaningful for a lot of families because they have children. And this is how I see it. So, but the question is, I saw some of them working with umbrella. And that is where the people now in the communities are saying the government is wasting their money because the way they go to work, the way they present themselves, the way they sit underneath the bus shed, they are not working. And people are complaining thoroughly about some people are working and some people are not working and they get $40,000 a month. So that creating a problem in the communities itself. And that should stop because the supervision is not there. And I talked about it, but then again, I am being criticized that I am condemning. I'm not condemning. I am saying what the people are saying who are not getting a job. And that is how it was presented, that I am criticizing the government for saying that the people are not working. But in fact, I can tell you, many of them are not working in my communities the way they're supposed to do before. And besides that now, Charles, it creates another problem for the stores. People do not want to go work for $2,000 or $2,500 a day in the store. So that's another big question here that we are facing, that you want somebody, a house cleaner, you want somebody to take care of this or that, you don't find people because now they got custom. Oh, we don't have to work hard, we get $4,000 a day. So that is another question here that we have to bear in mind.
Okay.
Unemployment, local jobs are very difficult.
I
The
know.
stores the stores now are being suffered because they can't afford to pay $4,000 a day for somebody to work in a store.
Gentlemen, Dr. Roser mentioned it, but in Barbados, you have 2 GARA office, you have 3 NIS office, you have the Public Utilities Commission, you have 3 GW Water Authority office, you have 3 GPL office, you have GRDB, you have the Water Access Users Association, you have the RPA, you have the NDIA, you have endless committees, you have 18 NDCs, you have the RDCs, and still Barbados seem to have one of the worst administrative problem in the country. Now, I want to refer you back, Mr. Passad, and I think both of you were there anyway. In the coalition time, and I'm not boasting the coalition or not, we had Gobe Harbourjan was the Prime Minister representative there in Barbados. And in my view, I think he did more in that 5 years than all the people here in Barbados currently doing now. What are your views on that?
I fully agree and endorse that. And that man, I respect him because he is not a racist. He doesn't care which party he belongs to. And he saw people, regardless what party you support, what he did, he represent everybody equally. And that's why I respect this man. And if we have more people like that, but with all these agencies we have there, too many cooks spoil the broth. And that's what is happening there. Nobody doesn't know what they're supposed to do. There are too many of them, too many agencies.
So before Dr. Amaya answers, what is your recommendation? What should really happen in Barbados to get things? You're a professional. Both of you gentlemen are professionals. What should happen on the ground there to put Barbados in a situation where it's properly managed and things are happening?
We cannot look at Barbados. Like, if we talk about planning now, and we'll come down to each individual, you got to plan for the entire country.
Yes, definitely.
What you need. And then as you address the needs of each area, right, then you go down to there. You got to do a multi-year operation plan, like a 5-year. Then you do your critical things and your budgeting and your resources, your forums, no overheated budget. Then you also do your O&M, operation and maintenance, like that's what we are talking about here now. The existing asset maintenance, we got to get a capital management database. We have to get a capital asset inventory system. We list all assets, schools, roads, bridges, etc. Right? And then we want to know how much money we're going to get. Let's take Barbados. Then you know where you have to do what and when, and you do the asset condition reporting system. It's all computerized. When I was there in '94, Minister Nokta called me over to to give a lecture there, and I discussed these in details, where the planning for operation and maintenance on existing facilities and the capital programs to meet the needs based on our oil, where you're going to have more schools, more roads, more everything. So in Barbados right now, you need to educate the people. You got to get that plan. What you need to do in Barbados, what are the needs, what is critical, etc. And then we can talk. But everything is in a massive confusion because there is no management from the government. There is no proper definition of each responsibility of all these agencies for 110,000 people. You know, I can't.
But that's why, Joe, in the confusion, that is where corruption takes place. And the politicians love it that way. They love it when it's confusion, so it's possible. But when we talk about you mentioned Minister Nokta in 1994 executive election. That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that nothing was implemented after that discussion?
No.
Wow. Dr. Amaya, what is your recommendation? Sorry?
No, some of the things that I see here,
one second, Dr. Amaya.
We
Dr.
have
one
to get
second.
rid of the red tapes of people.
Okay.
One of the things, Charles, that even the police are not effective, because if somebody get attached to somebody else in the police force and they do something that violate the laws, they call somebody and the police can't do their job. The red tapes we have to get rid of. And I think what Dr. Ashney Singh is doing right now, that he is spending a lot of time in Berbice, is to get things organized. How well it will get done and how well it will be executed, that's another story altogether. But unless we comb this thing with a fine-tooth comb, we will not get things done. The corruption, sometimes you go on the upper quarantine, you see all these big trucks. And that is why Harbajan was a little successful, because Kemraj stood that we have to start to clear up the roads. Now it is again is a parking lot. And I spoke about this. A lot of people die as a result of that. But how do we be able to bring things in position, in place? And Harbajan said, well, we have this second lot at the back, and the people who have all this equipment. Why don't they park it there? But they want to park it on the road. So it is a dangerous situation. And the road looks so dirty. And this is what I am saying. We got to cut down some of this red tape. Whether which party they're voting for, we will have to put things in place. And you know, when I see the advertisement that there's going to be an ex-Dubai, well, I don't think I'll live long enough to see. We start with that. We get out from this embryonic stage. We have to start to do something. And one of the things, Charles, if you travel on the roadside, you see this vacant lots. This vacant lot with so much bushes inside. It's become a hazard for the people who are living at the side. And all these things make up an environment, and that is why we can't get things done. We have to reinforce the law. We have to change some of this law, like what we had long ago in the 60s. We had rate sales. So you don't pay your rates, you don't clean your place, the local authority can action it and recover the money. We have to put things in place.
Yeah, definitely. 1 second, Mr. Prasad. And the thing is, again, during the coalition time, and I'm not pushing coalition, please, I'm not pushing coalition, but Dr. Ramaya, you were there on the electricity board at that time. Berbice was producing like 19 megawatt of power that was supplying the whole of quarantine with power. You guys had basically very limited blackout. I was told that Kemraj's nephew, Ramchatan, his nephew was stopped by the police, and he called Kemraj as the minister, and Kemraj said, well, you deal with that. Let the police do his job. He didn't interfere, and I like that kind of approach. But now, as you said, somebody called somebody up there, and the police can't do anything. So their hands are tied as well, because politics reign supreme. How do we stop that, Mr. Prasad?
You got to get principle and enforcement by the law. And first thing, you got to start to increase the salary of the police. People to take money, like I said, cost of living allowance. Their salaries, their risk of their life in what they're doing is very low, very cheap. You got to pay them much more so that it can be more dedicated to their job and enforcement. And we're in a third world country. And let me tell you, as this oil, little money going to flow, there's going to be corruption at all levels. If you don't educate and have proper checks and balances, auditing and transparency. I was saying just now, the PPP government retained a company from England. I forget the name of the company, something balance. And they had these 7 modules. The last 2 modules, the 6th and 7th modules, was never implemented. That deals with transparency and accountability, was not implemented by the PPP. And we thought it's going to be implemented by the coalition. They didn't do it either. But some of the other modules is what I'm talking about, capital management database, and how we can able to arrange in a management way, a management style, a proper planning, flow of information, organization charts, who does what properly. in inspection, but we train them. We don't have that. Government would have to bring people in if they don't know and pay them like 15, 20,000 US a month in order if they want to manage the management. Trinidad did it, all the other countries. Dubai was offering 25, 30,000 a month. House, car, transportation, because you need the skill. When you overheat budget, you need the skill. What do you do? How you carry things? So there are lots more in the planning. Lots more money. That 4.5 drums of oil might not enough to pay the salaries of the people they would need to carry on what you're talking about in Mobis and everywhere else. You know? So there are lots to be done.
Well, they can do that, Mr. Prasad, if, as you said, they need to renegotiate the contract, and that's a different discussion. Raphael Trotman said it can be renegotiated. The vice president in opposition said it will be renegotiated. In government, he's saying now it will not be renegotiated. So where are we?
That's nonsense. That contract, I write contracts like that. That's my job. And I'm saying it on this television. I can challenge any legal mind publicly in a court of law for the contents of that contract. It's not in good faith, it's null and void. And it should be renegotiated. That's what I wrote in 17 reasons why. And that's very clear. I do not agree with the vice president, and why he changed like that. People have different opinions, you know. So that's a different story, but can we go to planning?
Yes, definitely. Tell us, what is your view in terms of the government holistic view of national development? They're in quarantine, as you know. The Atlantic is eating away at our land. Gradually, the land we're losing the land. What should be our forward planning for the future?
Oh, there are many things you can do. You can put the big boulders. You can put seawalls. You have to identify where you're going to have tourists, like 63 Beach. There are several mangrove. And you look at the east coast of Florida there. They have these trees. They're growing at the side, which help to preserve the sand from being eroded by the water, you know? And so there are so many things you can do. Then you have every 100-year period, a flood will come. They call it return period. So there are several things you can do there to prevent it from eroding. And that's a good thing you said. Where I am living at Sempte Village Quarantine, and even 63 Beach. 63 Beach has washed in for more than a mile. I can remember that very vividly. And where I live, when I was small, my dad, we went and plant farms. All of that washed away 1.5 mile back, washed in. So erosion, but we have more serious problem. We're talking about land use planning here now. They allow Vichy to go and put an island in the Demerara River, whether at the side or where. Have they done sedimentation studies? These natural rivers were there before we were born. The water find their way and make their own way canals, drainage, rivers. Now, when we put the wharf there, it creates sedimentation at the mouth of the Demerara River. Now with Vichy there, it might cause lifelong taking up and pumping sewage by cost to the government. Why they put that there and no place else, I cannot believe it. And that bothered me. Now the bridge we are building, you got to do sedimentation study to see of these white columns, how much they would change the water course and cause more erosion and sedimentation. And the important thing is that land use planning, the Demerara River, we got the bauxite at the back, and they are supposed to 1 mile inland on both sides of the river, or maybe 1.5 miles. If you do a 100-year planning, there should be industries along those two rivers because the Marara River is our import and export route. So, and you do not, and they go and put a divided highway. That's elementary. You don't have to be an engineer to know that. You put a divided highway and taking traffic into a quadrant city. What a quadrant means is quarter of a circle. If you put a dot as a center of a circle at the lighthouse, and you do a big 1 mile radius circle, you will see that the east coast of the East Coast Road and the East Bank de Marara make that quarter of a circle. And you are going to pump traffic with divided highway into that city. That was very senseless. And I have told them a long time ago, both governments, we need a bypass road from East Coast to the airport. Well, the CEO Singh told me, Joe, but I had said, like local area as an example, but they're supposed to do a feasibility study. And the CEO of Sugar showed me, Joe, look, they're building your road there. But I said, have they done a feasibility study? Or is that road can create Georgetown as a pond? Then another thing in land use planning. Our Georgetown, when you dig a grave, about 4 feet below, there's water. And we are below sea level. You cannot increase the population density of that city. You're going to increase it. You're going to have more paved areas. You're not going to have infiltration into if rain falls. And then how do you deal with the sewage and the sewers? Where do you put them? What do you do with it? And the rainstorm water, you're going to create flood. And it's not wise enough to do that for many other reasons. And that road, therefore, I had suggested to both government again, we need a new city. I heard the president said Silica City. How did they choose that city? Did they do a feasibility study? For example, we got to think about where we put roads. Look at the present situation. They are taking our service roads, like the same East Bank to the airport, is a service road. A service road is where people live on both sides, do the routine things. We were using it as a highway because we didn't have many cars and we had small cars and we didn't have the population. But with this boom coming, we can't use a highway, a service road as a highway. You start to see fatal accidents. If someone do a curve from 20 years ago and to see the type and level of accidents, you start to see the effect of highway on service road, traveling from Quarantine to Georgetown, right? They are making 4 lanes road. How would a guy cross over the road? You're going to put a stop sign? A guy would take all day, like long time to come from Berbice to Georgetown. Used to leave in the morning, 3 o'clock, and you meet in Georgetown, do what you have to do, and then meet back home at 12 in the night in the Quarantine. Are you going to put stop signs everywhere? You're going to put 4-line highway on service roads? What are you trying to do? I advised the government and President Jagdeo too, some years ago, that we build a road. This is land use planning from Suriname Bridge to Supanam. I even discussed it with Mr. Nandalal as well. To Supanam, and there we put a few branch roads to Georgetown, go back through the bridge, etc. And then we can send one more halfway, so people don't have to use that existing route to Georgetown. We can cut off some of that traffic and have another city somewhere in the Amsterdam side or the other side, you know, and another city there. But when they go to Silica City, it defeats land use planning completely. How are you going to move your people? How are you going to transport them? And making hospitals everywhere and a stadium. Who that stadium serves? Think about education facilities for the people going to migrate and come here. Think about proper roads to save their life, etc. You know, and then putting a road, before you put that road, you'd have to go a little bit winding. You got to do photogrammetry, which they should have done already. Long time photography showed you some of the type of vegetation and the contour topography of the land. So now you have they should have soil test going on already, right? Where you going to, what kind of agricultural crop it grow, and good for export market and canning factories. And this is how nothing has been done. What they should have done. Photogrammetry and testing the soil so you can do land use, where to put roads, where to put housing. You take an example, and let me tell you this one. You see in Jartong right now, and Prashad Nagar and all these places, where they have all these septic tanks, a septic tank and the water draining everywhere in the yard, it's very dangerous. You got to put behind that septic tank a pipe and what you call a tile bed, but 2.5 feet deep in certain sand, graded sand condition, to allow aerobic bacteria action to convert those things coming off there, the water, to ammonia compounds and water. That is not dangerous, and we don't do that there. So when we increasing the population in the city, right? How are you going to drain all these things? What are you doing? Very, it makes me sick when I think about it.
Joe, we have to get another discussion on that. That's a long discussion. And plus, we are building hotels in the new city, so that's additional infrastructure. And you're so right. But this program, we will not be able to go through all the detail because Dr. Rose has some questions also, and we're running out of time. Thank you, Joe. That's a really great statement.
I really want to add a little to what Joe said. One of the problems of our sea defense and the beaches that we have, people start now to dig sand out of that beach. So Joe is right that the water is coming more to the land area than where it was before. There is a lot of erosion. One of the problems with the sea defense, especially Berbice, the fish pond is expanding towards the shore. And that is a dangerous precedence that we are setting here, that where people go and expand beyond near to this, where they're supposed to put the sea defense. And nobody is correcting that situation right now because I talked about it. One of the things that we need to do right now, from what Joe is saying, we supposed to go no more south of, especially Berbice, that we occupy more land on the south than to go towards the beach side and the north. And the more we go and we build, the more dangerous, just like on the East Coast, the seawater is close to the road. Sometimes when the waves come, the road all is overflowing with water. And this is another precedent that we set. And if we look at the short term, oh, we have fish pond here or fish pond there, the whole place with fish pond, they take more of the land right up to where the sea defense is supposed to be. And that is not the right way to go. All the corner woods, all is gone. They destroy everything. And as people start to sell sand out of the place. This lease land is government property. And we have to put things in place. And the short-term allowance that we give people right now is going to, later on, is going to be a severe situation like a tsunami will hit this place. And if we should hit Berbice in particular, we don't have nothing to come to our defense. Everything will be washed out. So we need to go more to the interior side now and start to create some more investment and build houses in that area. Like the 58th road that they built, right down. That's a nice area now for people to come build a scheme and start to do some investment, open nice mall and so forth inside the place, and people can go and live there. It's a big place. That's a good investment. But we have to get out from the coastal area.
Exactly right. That's what I'm advocating on a program that I'm doing. Dr. Rose, over to you.
Yeah, Dr. Amaya, cost of living is affecting the people across the country. You being or considered the czar of Berbice, the quarantine, how is cost of living affecting the people in the quarantine? And what are some of the reasons for it and how it could be remedied?
Well, Dr. Rose, one of the problems, the salary, which will increase better living standard in any given situation, any given country. If the salary is not to the cost of living, then we are going to remain on a poverty line. Now, jobs. Although the initiative to create this $40,000 jobs fund, it is nothing, because if you go for a family of four, even I have $150,000 a month to give them a good living, they will not. Now, education is a problem here where people are not educated to hold a job. But by the same token, what is the minimum or the maximum for employment with the government? And I was told that I believe next year that salary for police, nurses, teachers, all will go up. That will help the economy very well. Now, one of the things that you find, weather pattern also affect the development of any country. So one of the things that is happening in Berbice, that cost of living, jobs, weather conditions all affect the way people live. And we have to be very cognizant of that. And I don't know what is going to happen in the next 6 months, but the question here now, to alleviate the situation, money has to be in circulation. And I don't see where money is in circulation. And maybe that's one of the reasons also that the cane cutters are striking, that they need more money, the better condition working, and so forth. But the incentive has to be there. Now, people do not want to work, Dr. Rose. I see so many people. So if we want to put it that the government by itself, but I see some other devious things are happening in our society. Drinking has become a big thing in Berbice. The super bet, where they're getting the money from. Gambling is another part of this culture now. Drugs, a lot of people are pushing drugs. So all these things are contributing factors to the poverty level in this county, in Berbice, and across the country as well. But people who are conscientious about making a life, that cultivate their own stock, their own kitchen garden, and they do pretty well. But some people, they have a dependency upon money coming from overseas. That's one of the biggest problems that I see here right now, that they do not want to work. Even and you came here and we talked a lot about that. There's so much of dependency upon their families overseas that if that money is not coming every month, it's a problem for them. So all these things are contributing factors to laziness. People don't want to even to plant a kitchen garden with what they can do right now. And I think they can do it, but they're looking at others and they don't want to work. So in general, I will say that apart from the salary, the weather condition, the employment rate, all these are contributing factors. But one of the things, the remittances from overseas is a big thing for the people of this country.
Okay. Mr. Prasad, Guyana's GDP is about the highest in the world, ranging from between 43 and 48% because of its oil. But remove the oil, it will be about 5%. Now, tell me, why is it that the rest of the producers like rice and sugar and agricultural products and so forth, minerals, are not producing enough to compensate for the rest of the economy?
The prices for sugar and rice is fixed on the international market. Sugar as an example, because of health reasons, they got beet taking over sugar and so many other good sweeteners. Rice, on the other hand, fixed market overseas. And this is an important question. Let's take the rice as an example. When the British laid out those lands along the coast across Guyana, and give the people 2 acres here, 1 acre there, 5 acres there. It was peasantry farming, where they are supposed to do farming by hand. But that has changed. They are doing it by machine now. And while they do it by machine, it becomes costly. Fuel. And then another thing, the infrastructure of these things are not maintained. Like, they never had these long pumps that they carry now, right? They never had that. Water was going by gravity flow. Now you got to take a pump. All these are cost of production, and then shortage of labor. So time have changed that we cannot afford this peasantry farming anymore. We got to get large scale farming. Like I said earlier, when we got that road, you look at what will grow where and what rice, where it will grow, and large scale farming by plane and all these things. I went to Louisiana and look at how they do farming there. You know, they have laser, the land has to be very level if you want maximum production, etc. And plain through the paddy, they have large acreages. And the seed paddy, the processing of the seed paddy, you would be amazed to see. So we are still in the primitive stage where government has to help a lot in that.
Okay. Now, my other question is this, because time is of the essence here. The government has made massive investments in Gaisuku, and it seems to be paying off. Its current CEO, C.S. Narayan Singh, has done a magnificent job. In just 3 years, he'll be reopening up the Kanji Rosal Estate on Saturday, the 23rd of September. Mr. Dr. Amaya, do you think it was a mistake for Apple to close 4 sugar estates at the same time? Quickly, because time is of the essence. Be very short, please.
No, Dr. Rose, that was a grave mistake and a grave injustice to the sugar workers, because 7,000 people were depending on the sugar industry. They should have gone gradually. Though the sugar was being subsidized by the previous government, but still it was giving people food on the table. And they came very drastically. I think it's mostly on a political aspect that the sugar industry was closed. Objectively, as I see it, they want to get back to Mr. Jagdeo. And because of the failure of, which they mentioned about the Skellen factory, that so much money was invested and sugar was not profitable. But they could have done something, but they went drastically to close the industry, to penalize the people. That was a political move in my objective view. And
Okay.
that was the wrong way they go about to suffer the people because of political affiliation.
Okay. Mr. Prasad, quickly. 4 sugar estates were closed by APNU. The belief or the rumor is that most of the sugar workers are PP supporters, or were PP supporters and still are PP supporters. But the fact is, 36% of the sugar workers in Gaisuku at the time and even today are blacks. Did APNU make a mistake or miscalculation?
No.
Quickly.
No, not at all. I prepare a document, Gaisuku options, which the commission used. And that decision was a very professional decision. It would come back to haunt the PPP after by opening back the sugar estate. Just allow time. Now, I don't see how it can be profitable unless you go fully mechanized. And even if you go fully mechanized, the price for sugar, it's 19, we were producing for 40 cents and 19 cents in the international market. We were pumping, the government was pumping money, and even this government pumped money into sugar, right? And I don't see, maybe it's a paper trail that says it's really profitable, but I don't see how. Maybe I'm locking the data to know. But if it is so that they are producing, what I would suggest, don't open them back. It's costing money. These factories have been sitting down there for a long time. The cost of repairing and getting them going from corrosion, etc., is a fortune.
Okay.
And then highly mechanized might take, but You can't produce sugar for international competition.
Okay, given the fact that's the reality. But the question is this: the sugar workers themselves who are being employed are buying other products, and they're paying VAT and other taxes and so forth and other. So even though sugar, the price for selling it is much cheaper than still there's some compensation with that if you take all those things into consideration. And on top of that, there are other corporations that are being subsidized by the government, but the sugar industry are maintaining families through the country. So I think it's a good idea to maintain the sugar industry and to provide jobs for the people, because what would you do with all these people? Anyway, that's just a basic remark. But bear in mind, many workers, thousands of workers are buying other products and they're paying taxes on that. So the government is still gaining some money from those workers' expenditures. With that, I turn it over to Charles.
Yeah, I think you're talking two different things, Dr. Rose. I mean, there's still a lot of employment that is needed in Berbice. So I think what Mr. Prasad is saying have some great consideration is that you're spending money after factory that you don't know how it will operate after so long been idle. But that's a different story altogether. Gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure having both of you in the program tonight. We could wrap up time now. Dr. Amaya, anything in closing?
Yeah, I just want to subscribe to what Joe said. What we need with the sugar industry right now is have people to come here and invest in byproducts with our sugar, and instead of we importing so much things out of sugar from other countries. And the byproduct, and as Dr. Rose said, it creates employment. If you take all those estate people and put them out of a job, we're going to run into a situation that is going to be very chaotic for this country and any government to come into power, because both major ethnic groups are totally employed in the sugar industry. And we need to, if we have to subsidize it to a standard, but we need to keep the sugar industry going to create jobs until an alternative can be found. Thank you.
Which way we are going, Mr. Prasad? We are saying one time there's shortage of workers on one side, and two, we have to create a state of opportunity workers. I'm not sure I get it right. Well, Mr. Prasad, your closing statement.
Yeah, with respect to the sugar, the coalition failed in finding some alternative for the workers who were laid off. That on what I had suggested to them, like Trinidad did, from their rice and sugar people, they were giving them work to clean the road trenches and the canals, and that's what they were doing. These people, that were their job, to weed the trenches, and that could have been done at the different areas where the sugar is closed, but they did not do that, and that's where they failed and make an impact to the people. But it was not a racial decision to close it at all, because I am fully aware of that.
Okay, thank you so much. And Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
Yes, still my same calling, my same what I'm preaching. Better internet services needed in the country. It's about time GT&T and Digicel get their act together in the e-network and so to provide good internet services to the people. 2, increase the retirement age from 55 to 62. Provide at least $200,000 for public servants as a starting salary. And 3, make sure that our police are being paid properly so that they can perform excellent in their jobs. Thank you.
But I will recommend it $200,000 per month, but you gotta be properly trained. You gotta start passing exams now before you get into public service, or to the police, or to whatever the profession is. We need professional people, and that was the recommendation. Again, we want to ask our drivers in Guyana, please, school has begun. The students will be on the street. I know in Berbice, they're drying paddy also the side of the road. That will also be another traffic hazard. So please, drivers, be mindful that child might be your child. So please stop at the pedestrian crossing. Be careful. I know it's difficult to make a decision sometimes with the limited space you have there and the amount of vehicles you have in Berbice. It's really a difficult task, but all of us have to play our part. Thank you again for watching the program.
And a shout out to that kid, that student who got 27 subjects, 23 and 4 grade 2s. That
on
is
behalf of Globespan, we want
excellent for
all the kids who did extremely well, and we want to wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Of course, the advanced level also, the students did very well there.
I wonder if when I was the director of primary education in Guyana, when Dr. Jago borrowed me from the Canadian government for that 3 years, and all the textbook and curriculum and everything was written for primary education, I wonder if that make a contribution.
Most likely it did. Thank you, Mr. Joe Passad. So thank you again, right, all our viewers.
Joe, I will give you a props for that.
Until the next time, God bless our great country of Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.